Welcome to Nevermind the Furthermore with your host, Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Beware, beware. That might not be a phone jingling in your pocket. Join the Nevermorians for morning mischief and madness at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central. Your sense of humor is the only thing you need to wear.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian K. Morris, and welcome to a very special edition of Nevermind the Furthermore, the interactive talk show where you get to be a guest. And we're here representing the MAPLD FanFest, and thank you so much for having us here. Anyway, I'm your host, and we thank you for watching, whether it's live or on the reruns later. And also, if you're watching on Facebook, please give the page you're watching a like, if you would, please, because that helps them with the algorithms, you know what I mean? And if you're watching us on YouTube, also, please give us a like and please follow and share whatever you see here, because other people may be getting some information that they can use too. And this show is brought to you by MAPLD. And we've got someone very wonderful here who's going to talk for a little bit and tell us a little bit more about what is going on here. And hello, Maria Gonzalez. How the heck are you?
I'm good. It's been a fun day so far.
Well, good. Tell us what's aside from virtual exhaustion and thoughts of why did I do this? Tell us what it's been like so far.
It's been good. We started off the morning with just a simple introduction. We had our story time with Miss Vicky, who's in our youth services department. She did a superhero story time for the kids, and then we went to our live Disney chat. So we chatted up about Disney. Favorite movies, favorite songs, soundtracks, Pixar, just fun stuff, entertaining things like that. Yeah, we had a couple of giveaways, some quizzes in between, and now I'm here with you, Brian, doing this one, and later on we have another live stream with Eric Wolfgang. He'll be doing some live art for us, and then we will close out the evening with us announcing our cosplay competition winners and a Kickstarter panel with my friend from Guerrilla Publishing.
Oh, fantastic. This sounds like a lot of fun. I'll definitely be tuning in too. And if they're watching, and folks are watching on various platforms such as YouTube, etc., where can people find the core page, the hub of all this excitement, Maria?
It's going to be on the MAPLD FanFest Facebook page. We also have our own website, so it's actually going to be www.mapldfanfest.com. That's where you can find everything. Your stuff is on there too, Brian. We have an artist alley and a vendor alley with everybody's content in there, a little bit of bio about everyone. You click on underneath their links and it'll take you straight to their store, straight to their commission pages. So a great group of people have been able to give us their time. And lend us their talents, of course, but it's been fun. Yeah.
Oh, great. And this afternoon, for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about comics. I have a certain amount of expertise in the subject. Having collected since I was 3, that's where I learned to read. And also I write for other companies. And here's one done from a Chicago area publisher out of Oak Park, about Bachelor's Grove. And plus I published one and kickstarted it about 2 years ago, The Ghostly Tales of Spencer Spook. And also, we're doing this character, my partner Eric Hawkins and I, called Nature Boy, co-created by the guy who co-created Superman.
Nice.
And yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's one of the things about comics, whether you're just a fan or you want to create, it is fun all the way across. And also in the next hour or so, we're going to tell you, hopefully, how you can get into the business. It's not as complicated as you might fear. And we've got some really cool people showing up right now. Comics attract a whole bunch of great people, such as Charles F. Millhouse. Hello to you, my friend. Charles is a publisher of books and a huge comic fan. He's got a really cool collection that he shows off on his author page every now and then. And Cindy Kepp is watching us from YouTube saying great eatings at salad stations. And she's currently writing her very first comic script right now. And Phil Thompson's doing his own comic. Phil, good to see you, my friend. And Harley Slavic here is a comic distributor. He also has copies of my Spencer Spook comic. And Teresa Dunn, she just likes comics, and that's perfectly okay. But she's a great writer and poet. Glad to see you here. And then there's this person here who's rather inexplicable. He is Christian Basil, but if you want to learn about Doctor Who, he's the man to talk to. And this is how we all like to remember him. So anyway, and Christian's like, don't do me any favors. Anyway, Christian, glad you're here. Glad you're all here. And here we go. Christian thinks it's West Side Story. He's singing Hello Maria. And let's see. And let's see. Harley Slavic says, oh, wait a second. Christian says, you're not BKM. You're an imposter. BKM had his show earlier. Well, the thing is, Maria was sweet enough to ask, and I will go where I'm asked. So anyway, she's been a delight to work with here. And Harley Slavic thinks I'm a scroll. That could be. Who knows? But anyway, and
It's possible.
it is possible. You don't. I don't know even. And that's how good I am. But anyway, hello, Maria from Teresa Dunn of Chillicothe, Iowa, and another great author here, Carl Witzman, who did a book, The Mad Gasser Cheerleader of Calhoun County, loosely based on a downstate legend in Mattoon, Illinois.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah. Look up Mad Gasser, Mattoon, Illinois. Sometimes it is très creepy. And there's Alfred Pennyworth. I missed what you guys were talking about. Were you talking about an online convention, Artist Alley?
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
You can find it at MAPLD FanFest.com. You'll see Brian's work. We have Jack Gonzalez, Eric Wolfgang, Gorillas Publishing, a lot of vendors and artists lend us all their talent, beautiful work. But if you just click on our bios page, you'll see on the side, nice little drop menu, Artist Vendor Alley, and you'll find everyone's work and all our guests too, like Brian. There's a guest page that's separate from everything too.
There you go. They like to keep me away from the nice people. But anyway, Christian Basil says, Maria just stuck her tongue out at me. She has earned my respect. Well, she's obviously a good judge of character. So, but let's see. And I want to say hello to Merritt Spicer and Jeffrey Hayes, a very talented artist. Glad to see you all. You're all very creative people. And it is a pleasure to have you here. So if you're watching us on the FanFest page, please don't hesitate to share your questions with us, because we will do our best to entertain them. And if we don't know it, we'll probably be able to make up something. Who knows? But anyway, comics are really integral to my own life. I've said it often that I learned to read from comic books because I was born in 1936, and I babysat Moses. But anyway, my parents, when we'd go to the store, would sit me in the corner and say, look at the funny books, while the grown-ups talk. And I'm like, fine. And Superman, The Adventures of Superman, George Reeves was running at the time.
Ooh.
So here's this guy, and he's in a comic book, and I'm digging this. One morning at breakfast, and I was about 3 years old when this happened, we're having like corn checks, and I recognize it because of the great big rooster on the front, because it was brought to you by Kellogg's. The show was KELLOW, Kellogg's, Battle Creek, Michigan, etc. And we had like corn checks or something. One of the checks are cereals, and Mom was looking at the back of the container, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm like, Mom, how do you tell the difference aside from the rooster?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, well, it's words. And I'm like, what's words? She goes, well, that's that thing you're speaking right now. Duh. Mom and I had a unique relationship, but anyway, borderline abusive to each other. But anyway, but she, I said, well, how can what are these words? Well, what are you talking about? And she talked how these little squiggles and everything represented the sounds I was starting to make as a child. And I said, Mom, could you teach me to read? And so we use cereal boxes and primarily comic books to increase my vocabulary and learn about sentence structure and such like that. And I tell people I'm the only person that went into first grade who knew the word invulnerable because I'd read the Superman comics and I could spell it too. But I kept reading comics, and I still knew what girls were. It's okay, I didn't give them up for that. And just wanted to break into comics.
Yeah.
And,
a great field to be in. You meet so many different people, like how I met you through Andy, which is great people, but it's,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you start to network. You meet one person, you meet another person, like you said, and you just snowball. But yeah, comics are all genres. That's the best thing about it. You find different people that are either you're a writer, you can find an artist, or you're an artist, you can find a writer. There's always somebody out there that's a yin to your yang when it comes to comic creating. Yeah, I love it.
That's true. Now, what's your history with comics, Maria?
Well, my husband Jack Gonzalez, he's done a couple of comics. He had a Kickstarter for Last Unicorn. It's about a little depressed unicorn, basically going through adulthood, finding a job, getting an apartment, going through love, having to save the world at the end because he is a unicorn. But yeah, no, I've done stuff with him. I actually did a short story in a horror anthology called One Frightful Night with Brian DeFurring, Francisco Flores, Noel Morales. And I was supposed to make it into this last one for Tales of the Cryptic Closet too, if anybody's familiar with the guys that done Cryptic Closet. But Jack was in school and he was going to be my artist. So my story's on the back burner for issue 3, hopefully. But yeah, I like writing. I'm more of a writer. I used to draw. I used to pick up the Wolverine and Spider-Man comics as a kid. I used to just go ahead and use the photocopy paper from like the old money orders. And
Yeah.
try to get the drawing that way. Yeah, but no, as being a librarian, people always think you could read, you have all the time in the world to read, but you don't. But you end up making the longest list of what you would like to read because you're exposed to so many different things, So when you were saying things like how you learn how to read using comics, my cousin was the same way too. He had ADHD, but he could always finish a comic. There was something about a comic he could sit down and read it straight through. So the teachers ended up using comics as ways to reward him at one point. So it was really nice to see how people use comics in different ways in education.
Yeah, that's true. And as the sort of thing that you mentioned, you're right. Where the horror thing, was this going to be a comic book too, or was it prose?
Oh yeah, no, it was an anthology with, like I said, the 400 or 500 people. And the last one that was supposed to be, man, there was at least 12 other fantastic artists and writers that did all individual stories. I think it was like 120, 130 page comic.
Wow.
Fantastic stuff. Everybody's a fantastic writer. It came out of Guerrilla Publishing, if anybody's interested. But yeah, I was looking forward to it. I had a really good one about the Kukui, the Hispanic boogeyman. But don't worry, It's coming though. It's coming. I like writing horror. That's my thing.
Oh, very cool. And you and I are going to get along just fine.
Yeah,
So,
Bachelor's Grove, I'm like, I've been there.
I have too. I've been there twice. We did I showed you the comic book we did earlier from Silver Phoenix Entertainment, and the first time I went up there, it was funny because my host, my publisher, he had gone up the day before with a friend of his who brought their 5-year-old son, and there's that long walk from the highway up to the cemetery front gate, and after a while they stopped about halfway. They were compelled not to go on. And they theorized, and they couldn't find the infamous pond from the street. I wanted to go down there. I just had this vision of me. It was a rainy day, though. I had this vision of me sliding down the thing and into it, never to be seen again. But because I float like a cinder block. But anyway, they couldn't go on because of the innocence of this child, they think. Yeah. And then the weather was kind of nice. I go up, the temperature didn't go up to 10 degrees that day. And of course we found the pond right away. I walked right up to that thing. So that's kind of the counterpoint to that child's innocence, I guess. But the second time we went up, I went with a couple of my friends who were well-versed in the paranormal. And we found time slips going on. And we talked to we ran into the man who takes care of the bachelorsgrove.com website, which is a really great web resource there. And he talked about in the last month before we went up there, which was about almost a year ago, in fact, that people were experiencing, like, if you and I were walking together, at one point we would disappear from each other's view.
Wow.
And then walk a little further, and then all of a sudden we're back together again. And you would not see me, I would not see you. And that was a tad creepy. Plus, you heard about the thing about the electronics not working well.
Yes, I experienced that before.
Okay, so did I. I was trying to. We were up there for promotional pictures for our friends, and it was it around that big headstone?
You know what? We made it on top of the lake. This was in high school. We were going out to take photos for a photography class, and we ended up on top of the lake. It was frozen. Very, very scary situation we were in. So we had to get off really very, very easily because it was cracking, creaking, and everything. But no, I don't know if it's a split in time, but we got to a point where we would walk, we would stop walking as a group, and we would hear the footsteps behind us, like an echo of
Mm,
our footsteps. But
mm.
all our batteries, all our cameras, everything just no batteries, no nothing. This is back, you would put a whole bunch of, AA batteries and
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
pocket and your backpack, and you're carrying a bunch of batteries, and they were all dead.
yeah, yeah. My cell phone, I would almost watch the percentage, going down. So, and plus, I had a camera, and every time I aimed it near that stone, it started taking pictures.
That's crazy. I haven't been back because it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, I kind of want to go back, but I'm like, I don't know. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say next time I go up, I'll let you know. I'll escort you. I'll take all the crap from the spirits up there. And let's see. While everybody else has been making character assassination at me that I'm not putting on the screen, Philip Thompson says, who's a very talented cartoonist, think I want to be like Stephen King, Stan Lee, Walt Disney, Alex
Right.
Hirsch. Norman Bridwell, me. I think you mean Rockwell, but that's cool. And R.L. Stone, but still want to be myself and creating unique books that people will enjoy. And why can't you? Why
Yeah.
can't you? Because a lot of, like I write books, I write comic books, but I take a lot of my notes from the comics half of it. People like Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, the classic writers. So, and Pops Van Zandt has joined us. Glad to see you. Cindy Kep, glad to see you. And Molly Daniels, glad you are all here. And let's see. Harley Slivick says, from a distributor and collectibles company, store owner point of view, I think physical comics are getting more popular due to the indie movement. I would agree. I would agree. Yes, Maria, you wanted to say?
No, I definitely agree with that because it's evident in Kickstarter how many people have independent comics because it's not always the same stories. Different points of view, different perspectives, different ways of life. People are using comics now to talk about, political engagements in like their countries they live in, things like that. So yeah, it's more than just superheroes.
Yeah, which I'm glad to see. I mean, when I was growing up, we had not just superheroes, but in fact, when I was three, the field was dominated by non-superheroes. We had like newspaper strip reprints. We had crime books. We had westerns. Westerns were huge on TV at the
Mhm.
time. If I wanted to read Tarzan comics, by God, we had them. If I wanted Mickey Mouse, we had those too. Cartoon characters and such, Saturday morning or even evening programs or adaptations of movies and stuff. There was a great deal of variety in comics when I was growing up, and it was after a certain point the field then became dominated by regular superhero stuff. But horror made a comeback.
Mhm.
Or in this one here, I wrote this, and this is about 4 friends who went on a exploration of what they thought was an abandoned mental asylum. And of course, it wasn't. That's the story. There's a great deal of variety. And the nice thing is, a lot of people say, well, how can I get into comics? And the thing is, with independent comics in particular, it's easy. All you have to do is want to do it and give yourself a little bit of education. You don't, I'm not saying you don't have to pay for it. Everything's got to be paid for. But thanks to things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and other platforms like that, it's called crowdfunding, or also Patreon.com, where people actually send you money every month. If you have a large enough base, this could be worthwhile. But due to these, other people can invest in you, and in return, they get the comic. They also get other swag that may come along with it, stuff that is unique. Also, variant covers that are unique to that campaign. It's really a great way. I like to think of it as democratization of the comic creation process, because really, you think about it, like when I was a kid, back, about the time that Gutenberg learned about movable print, uh, you know, the secret of publishing were in big companies. You know, we didn't know how to create a comic book. We didn't have the first idea on how to do it. Then in the early 80s in particular, you started seeing people who figured it out. And like there was a great company out of the Chicago area called First Comics
Okay.
back in the 80s. And they got their stuff printed downstate in Sparta, Illinois, where DC and Marvel at the time were getting their work printed. Now we have something called print on demand, where, you know, just like with paperbacks, where you can get as many copies as you want. You want one copy? Here you go. You want 25 copies? Have at it. You want 200? Let's talk. That sort of thing. And also the fact that more people are able to network through social platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And there are forums like on Facebook where you can seek out, like, say you're an artist, but you don't really know the mechanics of comic book writing. You can reach out and maybe get some people who will work with you. So, you know, and, you know, Maria here, she could publish her book if she wanted to. She could even do it electronically.
Yep.
If she wanted to. You know, she could. There a lot of comics are very popular in digital form. In fact, one of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns ever in terms of comics was Rich Burlew and the Order of the Stick. He had a daily web comic that was basically stick figures doing D&D adventures.
That's brilliant.
It's a brilliant. Oh, you got to see it. It's a brilliant comic strip, and he wanted something like $5,000 to do a reprint of some of his strips and put them in like a trade paperback form. And then it turned out that people kept, you know, sending him money and sending him money. And I think the campaign was like I want to say it's a 30-day campaign, but it got to the point he had to quit giving stretch levels because he couldn't keep up. And he got something like 5,000% of his initial goal. You know, yeah. And the thing is, any one of us could do that too. You know, you strike gold, you get the right, you know, the right presentation, the right product. And I know a lot of people don't want to say, "No, I'm creating art." You know, no, it's a product. You know, get used to it, get over yourself. But anyway, it's a product that people love and people do enjoy. And I'll agree with you, Harley, that especially right now during what we call on my show the My Sharona Miley Cyrus Peter pandemic, that because we don't want to get demonetized by YouTube. So anyway, always thinking. You know, when this started, you know, DC and Marvel, you know, the hashtag was pencils down, stop working, we can't pay you. And the indie press said, hold my beer. Let's get this stuff out there. And I have friends that asked for, you know, like around $1,000, $1,500 and wound up getting 5,000 or more through their respective crowdfunding campaigns. So, and it's the thing is, it's doable. Everything here is doable. It's like I tell people with novels. Okay, Maria, you know, be careful now. You don't want this to get out. There's a site there are 2 sites that tell you everything you need to do this. You just ask the question. It's like an Oracle of Delphi. You ask the question and it gives you multiple answers from people that are actually doing it. Okay, your FanFest people are going to love this. We're you know, they'll probably kill me for revealing this. The site is called Google.com. Okay, and the other one is YouTube, where you're watching me right now, and Maria. All you have to do is ask the question, and it's not like you type in the keywords or anything anymore. How do I format a comic book for publication? Bam.
But wait, like my problem sometimes as being a librarian is that people don't know how to Google correctly either.
Well, yeah, there's that, but yeah, you probably have hours of fun if you still have an index card file.
It's like just because you don't get the right answer, what you're looking for the first time, doesn't mean Google doesn't have the answers you're looking for. You just have to rearrange your question just a little bit. Yeah, it's just like in movies, you know, you didn't ask the right question and you didn't get the right answer you desired, you know? So it's like one of those things where I tell people, like, Google is amazing. YouTube, before all this stuff, my cosplayer panel that we're doing. We were talking about it before YouTube. People just kind of put stuff together in cosplay. They didn't have how to do armor with foam. They kind of just like troubleshooted it, and if it didn't blow up or burn through something, then they were good to go in their cosplay outfit. But now there's YouTube, and it's a wonderful thing because you have instructors and university teachers and people in the business like yourself that can tell people, hey, try to do this or try to do this. Like distribution wise, like Harley was saying, libraries now, we don't always go through like, you know, Baker and Taylor and Ingham Press and stuff like that. We have independent areas for our community, and you can just bring us your book and we'll catalog them because we want to start supporting independent work, you know? So even libraries are looking over the shoulder of those big box, you know, distributors and looking past them to get more content, because a lot of times they have the same things. But yeah, Google, everybody, very smart, use Google.
That's right. And also consider your public library a resource as well. I've been astonished, and I got, you know, just to diverge from the conversation a little, I've been amazed the last 5 years how comics friendly libraries are now. When I was, again, back to my prehistoric childhood, our Danville Public Library had like 5 books on comics, and 3 of them were about newspaper strips, you know, from which comics sprang. But now you go into almost any library, even the smallest one, and they've got a decent selection of books on the production and history of comics, as well as graphic novels themselves. In fact, our the branch of the Lafayette, Indiana library has like 3 different sections on it. They have like a young readers area with, you know, manga and some of the more family friendly titles, and then they've got kind of a general you know, readership area, and then they've got, of course, the nonfiction area where you can learn the history of Superman, the history of Wonder Woman, how to create a web comic, that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people are not really recognizing how public libraries. Well, I'm going to backtrack on that. Actually, a lot of people are recognizing what a valuable resource libraries are, because I read a statistic last year that more people went to their local library than attended movie theaters. And last year was the year of Avengers Endgame, so that's pretty impressive numbers.
Now, I had that statistic, and I did a panel for libraries that create FanFest and diversity and how to engage your community and showcase the talent you have around you at C2E2. And that was one of my slides, was the fact that libraries had more people using everything, DVDs, hotspots, you know, laptops coming in to check out materials, movies, than the movie theaters. And like you said, it was some big blockbusters last year. But the fact that we had more people, more butts in our seats, that made me feel so proud, you know, of my profession. But piggybacking off what you said about comics, I think what changed the view of a lot of people is the traditional thing where you need to read a book. And that was the traditional sense that people needed to read just regular, bland, you know, lines of books. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as people started to get more savvy in how people learn, how they're visual learners and things like that, and how they're storytellers, they realize a lot of kids do read through graphic novels and manga, and they're still reading. Like I'm a big defender of video games too. A lot of RPGs, you're reading through dialogue, you're experiencing something, you're making decisions. That's all cognitive behavior that you're doing. So downplaying of video games is also, you know, you shouldn't do that because kids are learning different things too. But no, manga and graphic novels are a huge part of libraries now. And like you said, at all levels, we have early readers from preschool and kindergarten that go through Superman, Marvel, DC, and they're just little single panels, maybe 2 panels per page. Then it gets to middle grade, and then it gets, you know, young adult, and then we have the adult section. So there's something for everybody.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that. That makes me so happy. Christian Basil says, my friend Nicole Jobin uses comics to educate. I think if we had comics instead of ancient textbook Encyclopedia Britannicas, we'd all be geniuses. Well, you know, again, you know, comics, you know, in my own case, led me to learning because back in the day, they used to have subscriptions, and to get the postal regulations so they get the cheap mailing, they had to put nonfiction stuff in there.
Of course.
And it might be 2 pages of text, or it might be, I grew up like reading The Flash, and they always had flash facts. And it was like, you know, about the leopard being, you know, the cheetah being the fastest animal on Earth, and how many times light could go around the Earth in
Mhm.
1 second, that sort of thing. And I would go ask my parents, is this true? Because I'm seeing a guy that can shoot, can repel bullets off of his chest and fly across the country, and you told me I can't do that. Now, is, you know, is this legit? And they finally got tired of me asking. It shows you what kind of child I am, and somewhat of an adult too. But they taught me how to use a dictionary and to use encyclopedia. So again, like you said, it blossoms. It leads to the next step. If children are guided correctly, and comics are a huge educational tool.
Yep.
In fact, a lot of companies do special educational comic books for private organizations. I remember, well, back in the 70s, the 70s, Amazing Spider-Man and Green Lantern and Green Arrow both did anti-drug comics
Wow. Yeah.
in their mainstream offerings. And, might have saved some lives that way. And in fact, another thing back in the 90s, what was it? Superman. DC put out a volume of Superman that was distributed to like some of the Middle European countries that were undergoing political upheaval at the time, and they had a problem with landmines, and they did a special comic in their language.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's,
and
I like
that shows you the power of comic books.
Yeah.
So yeah, we probably would be. That's why I am a genius, and I'm modest and proud of it. So anyway, and Maria's going, why did I invite this guy? Dear Lord, what was I thinking? Anyway, Cindy Kemp would like to know your favorite comic book and character. They know mine. Okay, so Maria, what's yours?
Actually, for a while, it was I love Batman. I like the idea of Batman. There was always a realness to Batman and his villains and things like that. Like, it could have been anybody, really. They're actually real characters that kind of started off that way. But if I had to, this goes back to my old library I used to work at. The kids used to call me Harley because
Oh, I see it. So
they called me Harley, and I think they said because I was always so cheerful, the dimples give it away. But the minute I get a little mad, I'll be like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? So they said I had that kind of quick wit about me, but I also have a Harley Quinn tattoo to echo off your tattoo. I have a Harley Quinn tattoo on my calf. But I do my comic books I've been reading. I haven't read that many actually right now. I've been doing a lot of indie stuff, just reading a lot of indie stuff from my friends. If my friends publish something, they send it to me. I'll back them. I'll read their stuff. But as far as like right now, I've been enjoying a lot of the new Stephen King. So I've been reading a lot of his stuff. Catching up on shows that I haven't really watched because, like we talked about, 2020 has been canceled. So when I kind of didn't get around to shows, I'm like, it's the perfect time to kind of look at TV shows right now. But Harley Quinn. Another one that's close to my heart is the Green Lantern. My husband, he was in the military. So when he joined the Air Force, and Green Lantern was one of his, Hal Jordan was one of his favorites of all time. So when I think about Hal Jordan or like comic books, I always think about the Green Lantern and him on those aspects. And then Christopher Reeves. My parents brought me up on that Superman, and I love him. Michael Keaton as Batman was my Batman. And just, yeah. All around girl. I like anything. I'm really easy though to actually just like, hey, this sounds interesting. Okay, I'll read it.
Very cool. Very cool. What kind of independent comics do you tend to favor?
I don't mind doing a little bit of like the real life situation, just like even sometimes if it's just like LGBTQ community, like coming out stories, things like that. I like to have different perspectives of like upbringings. I kind of like that, like more personal aspect. But if I had to pick, like I said earlier, it's horror. Anything. I love horror comics. So like when my friends were doing Tales of the Cryptic Closet, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then we got together with friends and we published our horror one. And then I have another friend that's coming out with another horror comic. I had to get his link for it. It's going to be on Kickstarter soon. But yeah, I like scary stuff. I can't sleep when I go to bed, but when I'm reading them, I'm having a really great time.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Harley Slavic says, comics and the related movies/shows were a way I coped with being bullied as a kid. I have cerebral palsy, so I was bullied a lot. Comics are more important than the average person might think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably why, I grew up fairly alone. We lived in the country when I was, my early years, and it wasn't until I had entered the school system that, we finally got around normal people. But it just appealed to me, the idea that, Superman, for instance, he's this guy that, he's very ordinary. But, if people just looked into him a little deeper, they might see something really special, and I think that's a great, great message for a lot of people, I think. Christian Basil says, not being able to see each other for a long time. Yeah, Brian, that's not paranormal. That was my high school love life. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Now this is a question from me, but I'll answer it first. Then I'm gonna shift it to Maria. Philip Thompson wants to know, what's your inspiration to become a writer. It's not money, that's for sure. Um, there's an old joke. You want to know how to make a small fortune in publishing and writing? Start out with a large fortune. No, I always made up stories when I was a kid because, like I said, I grew up fairly solitary, and I would read a comic book, and let's say I finished the latest Amazing Spider-Man. Well, I want more Spider-Man stories, so I realized I started making them up. That was the only way I could get more of the stories of my comic book heroes, and eventually it led to me realizing that somebody got paid to put the words in those balloons. And and also, I was developing a fondness for prose at the time, and so one thing led to another. In my case, in fact, the very first time I sent any fiction out was to a kind of like a C grade, and C is a relative because it was a company named Charlton Comics, and it's like, and Maria looks puzzled, but Charlton was a comic company that it was founded by gangsters, and they bought a printing press and realized the only way they could make money was to keep the presses rolling, so they developed a line of comics. But they also published people like Jack Kirby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, right there, and Steve Ditko.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where John Byrne got his start. Other people like Paul Kupperberg, Mike Zeck, Dick Giordano, who eventually became an executive editor at DC Comics. A lot of Bob Layton, who did Iron Man forever. A lot of really talented people got their start there. And I sent a comic script to the editor at the time, and I wound up doing everything wrong but making personal threats against them. That's about the only thing I skipped. But they were nice enough to send me a little pamphlet that they had just created on how to produce comic books. And I took that thing to heart, and off and on, I've published comics, since the mid '80s. So it's that was kind of like my moment when I realized I wanted to be a writer. And nowadays, the technology finally caught up with my wishes, so that now I can indulge myself both in prose and in comic books. So that's my origin story. Maria, how about you? What made you want to become a writer?
Well, it's kind of weird because we just talked about us about being only children, so I kind of had that solitude upbringing too. I didn't have a lot of female influences in my life. All my cousins that were closer to me were all like guys, so I always related to comic books, sports, video games, and things like that. But when I was about maybe, I want to say the movie came out when I was 10 or 11, Interview with the Vampire. I watched a lot of movies I probably shouldn't have watched when I was a kid because my dad forgot that I was a small child. And yeah, he just forgot. So
Oops.
Big oops. But I used to read like R.L. Stine and things like that as a kid growing up, but I would go through them too fast. My mom couldn't keep up giving me books or going to the library. I just would turn out books really quick. I didn't know until I saw Anne Rice in an interview that Interview with the Vampire was a book. So my mom trusted me at like 10 or 11. She's like, if you want to pick up this book, remember, if it gets too scary, you could put it down. She always used to tell me, if it feels like it's too much, you could put it down. But when I started reading the words and just the descriptions of the places that she would paint, I just got obsessed with like older novels. And then from there, I read Neil Gaiman and I read, Stephen King. And I just started spiraling before I was even a teen into just books that had descriptions and worlds that they created. But I didn't get into it until my husband would bounce ideas for comics off of me. And then I'll say, ooh, but what about this? He's like, well, why don't you just write something? And I'm just like, okay, that was passively aggressive, but you have a point. But he made sense. And he told me to do what I love, which I said is scary stuff. And I gave it a shot, and everybody loved it when I put out the story. And then I've just been kind of writing here and there a little bit more. Yeah, I have a novel that I like to write. I have like kind of the premise and the plot and everything kind of thought out. And I just kind of have to push myself to put it out there and do it. So anybody watching out there, yes, I still have my doubts as a librarian that reads a lot of books and have friends who publish things all the time. It's okay to doubt yourself, but you know, sometimes you kind of just have to jump, you know, so I hope to do that soon. I hope to jump and do it soon. Right? Look at it. See?
Right. Yeah, see? And this is only part of my library, and I've only done this, novel writing really in the last 8 years or so. So if you need somebody to nag you.
I do, because I really second guess myself. I'm very analytical writer in my undergrads as criminal justice. I was very criminal behavior was my major when I was doing all that.
Oh, neat.
But due to physical limitations that I didn't know would prevent me from pursuing a law degree and things like that into criminal law, I couldn't, achieve it. But yeah, I like the way the mind works. I'm very research orientated, so I have to sometimes relax in my writing. And I have to find that balance on the two. So I appreciate that Stephen King had wrote The Outsider, and he gave a lot of props to one of his friends that would do the research part of his stories for him. And I didn't know of this person prior to that. And I was like, ooh, that's how I feel. I'm that person. I could be that. But how do I get into the Stephen King aspect of my writing? So I have to find that balance. But I'm pretty sure I'll be bugging Brian.
I hope so. Because I'd really love to see what you write. I love how you think. I really do. And just to give you an idea, you talk about horror. I grew up with some horror comics. My first real book was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
That's a great book. It's a great
read. So underestimated. I've read that dozens of times. I love that book. I really do.
I love that one more than Dracula, which is not a popular thing, but I like it. Frankenstein has a better perspective. And Dracula, I feel like it takes too long to build, and it's not what you think if you look at the popular versions of Dracula. When you see Frankenstein, you read it and you sympathize so hard with the monster.
Yeah.
I love it. Sorry.
Oh, I do too. No, don't apologize. You're preaching to the choir here. Cindy Kemp wants to know: are web comics destined to replace paper, more like novels and books that manage to coexist? I've got to agree with you. I don't think it will happen in our immediate future.
No, as patrons that come to the library, there's something about the smell of books. The smell of books, the physical holding of papers, especially comics. A lot of kids like to just hold them still. I think the next generation's already on the point. They still want comics. Even though they're like this all the time, they still want to hold a comic or a manga. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something I talk about frequently is hoopla.com, which ties into, it's not bootlegging. It is not like you're going to Pirate Bay or anything. It ties into your library card, and right now you can check out 30 items per month while the Peter pandemic is going on, which includes graphic novels, which includes individual comics as well. And so I've been keeping up on a lot of stuff that way.
Yeah, we have Overdrive, which is media on demand. That's another one that has a very, very great catalog of just a lot of comics of Avatar: The Last Airbender. They have Kirkman with The Walking Dead. They have a lot of different things that are coming out there. They have some Neil Gaiman. They have Sandman. So yeah, definitely a lot of stuff for everybody.
Yeah, and if you haven't read Sandman, you are denying yourself one of the great pleasures of life. Seriously, it is one of the best comic series ever. Philip Thompson wants to know how to grow your fan base. Well, you're doing a lot of it, Philip, by just interacting with other professionals. But keep studying and keep putting your work out there. That is the best way. And when you get published, now here's a little trick that I kind of backed into, that I didn't realize I was doing it right until I did it, where you take one success and you use it to reach the next plateau. For instance, I used to be a playwright. In fact, I had some productions in Chicago. I had a 10-minute play that was like 6 minutes of Cub jokes that ran in a theater in the shadow of Wrigley Field. That was what I thought would be my last night of life on this earth, but they loved it, fortunately. But the fact was, I was, I had, gotten a play produced, and I'd actually gotten an award for it because the director had to step into one of the roles during Tech Week, and omitted 3 pages of dialogue when he was on set. And I didn't notice it. And I'm the guy who wrote it. I was just so thrilled it was up there. I didn't notice the thing. So they gave me an award for not killing him. And I thought, well, I wrote a play, and I got an award at the end of it. I'm an award-winning playwright. And that's, oh yeah, thank you, milady, thank you. And that's why I put air quotes around it too, because it's not really yeah, it's there's a little larceny in everything we do. And so like I went to I wanted a job with Tomorrow's to be an interview transcriptionist, because then I get all the dirt that people don't it doesn't get printed. That's reward in itself, and I got paid for it. So I went to the publisher and I said, I'd like to do this for you. By the way, I'm an award-winning playwright. And they're like, ooh, I know, so hoi polloi here. And so they give me the gig, and then I want a job with another magazine. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm doing some stuff for Tomorrow's, which also, by the way, opened up doors for writing for me, because I started doing articles for them too. And I go to the next magazine and go, hey, listen, I heard you need some writers. Hey, I happen to be a writer. Here's my resume for what I've got published so far. And by the way, I'm an award-winning playwright. And I kept this going, and it's funny because I started this in 1997 when I got the play produced initially, and the only 3 people I've been asked only 3 times in all those years why there's quotes around my award-winning playwright thing, and none of them are from publishers or editors. Yeah, so you call it a scam, call it what you will, but anyway, and let's see.
It's fluffing yourself up. If you don't fluff your own content or your worth, no one else is gonna do it.
Exactly. And by God, I'm making up for a lot of people there too. And thank you, Andrew Russellberg. Glad to see you. Thank you. Appreciate the well wishes. And Bill Sarn says, what's all this then? He said in his best Monty Python voice. You're saying that people can get paid for their art? I don't believe it. It's true, illustrator Bill Sarn. I'm not saying they get paid extraordinarily well, and I don't think a lot of people are paid anywhere near what they're worth, but that's another discussion for another day. And Maria, I know you promised to, I know you've got something at 5. I am keeping an eye on the clock for you.
That's totally fine.
Okay, I worry. I take care of my people, Maria. These folks can tell you that.
I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. And Christian Basil wants to know, Maria, not necessarily your favorite character, but which comic book character do you connect with the most, and why?
Ooh.
That's a good question. That's a super question.
That's a really good question. Oh, I don't know. Character that I connect with and why? I don't know. From a comic book, that's really hard to gauge through. I mean, like I said, I want to say Batman for some reason, because he's like probably my all-time like favorite. Because there's always this like really fine balance that he has to struggle with being absolutely good and not being good, because he is a millionaire. He could solve a lot of the issues in Gotham, but he just chooses to fight crime. And it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like you look at the political imbalance that's going on right now in the world, and then you look at some of the comics and you can see where things could have shifted, where maybe Batman could have been the villain, maybe he's actually is the villain in some of the retrospects of, in the villain's eyes. But yeah, I don't know. I connect with Batman because you always want to do the best you can, and you're always going to fail somebody, because I feel bad for that guy. He's always letting people down, and half the movies, like in Lego Batman, they didn't even want him there. Like if you saw Lego Batman, like they didn't invite him nowhere, and as the only child, like, yeah, sometimes I didn't get invited to any place, and I'm like, Bruce is by himself, he's the only child, I get that too. And and my friends always call me emo at work. I'm like the dark, I have my black heart grows in sizes, that's what my coworkers tell me. Just for an example, like, for my boss gave us balloons on one random day. They gave me a red balloon because I like Pennywise the Clown. They tied it to my chair. So if that's any indication to the vibes I let out.
Oh my God. That's why we get along so well, I'm thinking.
But no, yeah, I would possibly, or like, no, actually, I lied. My friends will probably tell me that I kind of embody like Bill and Ted surfer vibes. I'm very kind of, when I'm excited to do something, I'm very animated to do it. And yeah, I just dressed up like Bill for the movie. I made a costume for my library, and I'm just doing this in the picture. Like I'm a happy person. Like I really am, and I have a good time. And I like to have a lot of good people around me to do things. But I'm an introvert, which is really weird too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true of a lot of creative people, that we are at heart introverts. And, I keep talking about the person that shows up for this show. It's me, but not me.
Exactly.
Um, like me, it's on here, doesn't drop F-bombs every other word, and doesn't cry during inopportune moments during Doctor Who. It is me. A lot of this is me, but I'm shielding you from some of the more negative aspects of Brian, and you're welcome. Okay. And Andrew Russell Burkett says horror comics are my favorite to write, and also. Do it. I doubt myself constantly. I've written a novel, but have done nothing with it. On our Tuesday night show, Clever Title Pending, and we are going to revisit it. And maybe I'll invite some other. I'd like to invite some other people onto it. But we talk about imposter syndrome all the time, and I think something like that is an offshoot of that, where we think we're not worthy of the attention, the accolades we get. And one of my slogans is "I look good on paper," because I've got a pretty decent resume. But every now and then, when things slow down and I get a little too introspective and it's a little dark in the room, I start thinking, why is everyone being nice to me? Why is this happening? And it's all part of imposter syndrome, but you won't know if you're an imposter or not until you do it. And it's worth exploring. And you will find, when you get out into this creative community, whether it's books, whether it's comic books, or what have you, there is an amazing community out here of creative people who are, even if they don't do what you do, they're incredible. You find the right people, they're incredibly supportive, and they'll cheer for you louder than anyone, than you ever will for yourself. And that's the one thing that helps dispel imposter syndrome. So Andrew, and also certain other people, get your work in print, okay, and roll the dice. Because the thing is, I personally, I believe this since day one, that there is a market for just about everything you do. Whether it's art, whether it's painting, whether it's writing, t-shirt creation, graphics, whatever. There are people that are waiting for what you have to offer. I'll make it about me as usual. This was my first paperback, and being the marketing genius I was at the time, it's a holiday book I released in March. Yeah, and so you think so what's the big deal about this book? This book has sold in 6 different countries. Okay, this book has sold in 3 different continents.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And I am proud as heck of this book. And we've all got something like this inside all of us. And if I can do anything this afternoon and encourage someone to get the information they need, to create the links they need, whether it's interpersonal or just knowledge, technological, whatever, to make this happen. And the thing is, there is nothing like the rush you get when you open up that box from Amazon and everything in it's got your name on it.
Yeah.
And it is, it ought to come with a pack of cigarettes. It is that good. And it is even better? The second time it happens. And the third. And then eventually you get asked to do it for someone else. Like I did this book here. It's a revival of a 40s comic book character. It's a funny title. It's humor. But I got asked to do this one. I got paid for it too. I got asked to do this one. It's when somebody else is willing to invest their money and time to bring you into print. That's a golden feeling too. And I want you guys to have it. And there's only one person who really is stopping any of us. And I had to wrestle this person in submission. Yeah, Exactly. And once you get past that and you start collecting compliments and you start getting people who take time to write you and tell you, you're awesome, or your story cheered me up when I needed it at a time I needed it the most. Um, there's a story that was on bleedingcool.com about 4 or 5 years ago about a young man who was a Spider-Man fan, and his life was in the toilet. Okay, and not to get too maudlin about it, but he had a plan for this one day on a new comic day. He was going to go to the comic shop, and he went and did it. He bought his favorite Spider-Man title. He took it home, backed his car into the garage, and closed the door. But the motor was still running. His goal was to finish this comic and then leave this world, because this was his plan A. But something in that story made him finish it. He threw the comic down on the seat, got out, and threw that garage door open. And it gave him a reason to keep going. And what was even cooler was he saw the writer at a convention a couple months later. He goes up in line, and it turned out the line was cut off just in front of him because the writer had someplace else to be. And so he's standing there holding this comic going, well, I tried, and I'm this close. At least I got to see him. The writer came from around his table, saw the guy holding the comic, said, hey, listen, I've got time for one autograph. Would you like one? And he signed this guy's comic, the comic that saved his life. And you never know who you're talking off the ledge. You don't know who you are brightening their day. And that's why I think we need to do this.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. When Jack did his first comic about the unicorn, it came from a place when he left the military. He'll probably talk a little bit about this with you tomorrow on the writing panel that you're going to do. Yeah, and he wrote it because he came out of the military. He was discharged because he ended up having diagnosed CMT, which is a neurological disease for his. So it makes it hard. Charles Schultz had a shake when he used to draw, so he has a shake too. Jack has a shake, and sometimes he gets pain when he draws. But when he wrote the unicorn book, it was on Kickstarter. And like you said, seeing it being bought by other people in different countries was amazing. Like you just want to get like a map and start putting pins where people are buying it. But when we would go to conventions, and one girl, like she had ADHD, and she had bipolarism, and she was depressed. She said that book made her happy. And she had like a little stuffed animal. I made some stuffed animals of the unicorn character, and she bought one. And then a year later, she comes back, and it was just her mom. And her mom told her that their house had burned down in a fire, and her daughter was having a hard time in the hotel that they were staying because she lost everything. And she said what she used to take with her to doctor's appointments and things was that little unicorn. So of course we gave them the unicorn. Later on, she comes back and gives us this video of her daughter like crying, holding this unicorn, because it was like the little tether that kept her happy, and it's like you said, it's like those little moments, and like you don't know how to like gauge it when you hear it, because you're like, oh my God, like I can't understand how somebody would feel this way, and it's a motivation, definitely. And like I see Jack do it, and like you say, your story, and and your the story with the Spider-Man thing, it's like I guess I'm just scared to fail, which everybody else is, because you want to have that. You want to achieve something, even if you don't touch somebody in that level, but you want to bring somebody just enjoyment, and I think it's just the fear of failing. That's how everybody has that fear.
They do, and once they get over that, because I don't look at failure so much as that.
Yeah.
Because I can keep going, I can do it again. To me, it's like it's an educational opportunity, because I screw up once and I say, oh well, and then I do it again, but armed with fresh knowledge. And Andrew Russell Burkett says, I'm just starting as a writer, so I need to do this. Definitely need to build some credibility. And you do it by learning, and you learn by doing.
Yep.
And right now the technology exists that you don't have to spend $1 bazillion to get it. You don't have to buy 20 cases of your work and stick it in the garage for the rats to eat. Everything you need to know, from getting the work done to distributing it to printing it, everything you need is out there. And I am looking at the time. Maria, do you have another place to be?
Yes, I can actually head out and start getting ready for the next thing.
Okay, and I didn't mean to keep you the whole hour, but you have been an absolute delight.
Thank you. It was great having you guys. Like, thank you so much for doing the panels today and tomorrow. Yeah, shout out to Andy. Thank you for the connect. Brian is an amazing gentleman.
Andy. Thank you, Andy.
I hope to see you really soon in person, Brian, so we could actually chat and have a good time when the world settles back into what normal used to be.
Yeah, or whatever it becomes. Yeah, and the first cup of coffee's on me.
Oh, hearts.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me, and I will see you tomorrow. And you guys have a nice rest to your evening too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You see down below, there's a thing that says "Leave Studio,"
Yes,
and just click that, and you're out. And thank you, Maria. Thank you for being here.
thank you. Thank you too. Bye,
All
everybody.
right. Bye, Maria. Wasn't she amazing? And we didn't intend for her to be the guest on the show, but it worked out. And I appreciate all your comments here. I'm going to take a few more here. We've got a little bit more to go. And if I haven't said hello to, please consider yourself said hello to. And Terry McIver, glad to see you here. But Andrew Russell Burke, and getting back to your question, I hope you take the time. And if you need some advice or anything, reach out to me. Because, like I say, we have risingtide.pub where you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter. We have information on what we do. We'll get into that a little bit later, but we also have a page on Facebook called the Rising Tide Publications page, and I can be contacted there or through my personal profile. So if we aren't friends already, please friend me. I'd be glad to help you. Harley Slavic says, if you want to get your comics into stores, check your immaturity at the door and be respectful. If you go into the mindset that your comic will do well in the long term because your crowdfunding campaign went well, then you will more than fail in the long term because you're not putting forth the effort you would put forth if you realize you could fail at any time. Hope for success, but expect to lose it. That is one way to stay motivated. Yeah, and there's something to be said for that, Harley. Thank you for that comment. That a lot of people, like Maria said, are afraid to fail. But what if you don't? What if you never try? Um, what if Beethoven never tried to write down any music that was going on in his head? What if Paul McCartney and John Lennon once said, I like that guy, but I don't think we could play in a band together. It's too scary. Um, we try, and that's how we succeed. And and Christian and Harley are saying I'm a fake. That's probably true. And yes, they do. The squirrels do wear fezzes. That's the source of their power. Andrew Russell Burkett says, I've raised 100,000 plus on Kickstarter and do Kickstarter consultant, but I don't feel like I know what I am doing. But people hire me, so I must know something. Imposter syndrome is hard. Yeah. Well, it's like Andrew. It's like a couple of years ago, I was at a convention in Southeast Illinois, and I told this story often on my daily shows and my nighttime show. That I was up there with two friends of mine, Amy Hale and Kathy Jackson, two very successful and very awesome romance writers. That we're kind of each other's cheerleaders, right? You need to find your cheerleaders, and they will come forward once you start getting a little success. But anyway, Andrew, we were getting a lot of questions from our audience. And at one point, one of the questioners looked at me and said, I'm sorry if we're bothering you with all these, but we don't get many celebrities in this town. And I'm like, and I turned to the ladies, I'm like, you two, right? And they're like, no, it's got to be you, Brian. It's got to be, it's got to be the other two. It's, celebrity is a relative thing, but yeah, you just have to remind yourself. Like in this case, you have raised so much money, man. I doff my fez to you. That is fantastic, and I know who I'm gonna like kiss up to next time I run my Kickstarter campaign. But seriously, but yeah, if you got that urge to do it, man. Because the thing is, how many great works of art would we be denied if the person gave in to their fear? And the thing is, if you treat everything as an educational experience and don't be afraid to ask questions. Philip Thompson and I have known each other for about 3 years, and he's always asking me questions. I'm always happy to give it to him. And here's the thing, Andrew, you'll find the real people out there, the ones that want to help, the ones who do what I call the rising tide. Um, President Kennedy used to say that all the time, that a rising tide raises all ships. The idea is we look out for everyone around us, and they look out for everyone around them, which includes us. We all take care of each other. We all help each other. We all encourage each other. We all rise together. See? So find your tribe, Andrew. Find your tribe. Start here, okay? And Terry McIver, glad to see you, my friend. Says all creativity has an audience. Finding that audience isn't always easy. That's where a share, a like, a recommendation all come in, and they cost absolutely nothing. You nailed it right there, Terry. You want to support the arts? You don't have, it helps if you buy the product. It is great. I genuinely appreciate it. I have a tip jar, an online tip jar, which I appreciate people some giving, me funding to improve the look and sound of my show and the look of my publications. But the thing is, you know, marketing is so very important, and it's a pain in the backside. It really is, but it's got to be done. But how many of us go to a 9 to 5 every day and love everything we do? How many of us go to a 9 to 5 and get some sort of assignment or a task or something shoved at us that we would just as soon pull out our own fingernails than do it? But we're willing to do it for somebody else. Why aren't we doing it for ourselves, right? Anyway, and Harley Slavic has a cheap plug. He has copies of Spencer's Spook left. Please contact that man. And Andrew Russell Burkett, I hope you're still here, man, to hear me tell you good night. Hope you have a great evening, my friend. Thank you for being here. Stay safe, Maria. Wasn't she? Yes, she was awesome. I gotta agree with you, Harley Slavic. And Rising Tide is the bomb diggity. So is CKOEPP.com. Best. You can sign up for the best newsletter in the universe there. And Andrew, great guest for sure. Andrew, I couldn't agree more, and it was so gracious of Maria because I told her, I said, this is the only break you've got for a while. Take it, just come on, say a couple words. And she was kind enough to stay with me, and I really appreciated that. And gonna head out. Take care, Harley. Take care, and Andrew, thanks. Have a great night as well. You too. And we're going to close it off here. I appreciate everyone showing up, whether you're watching live or in the comments. And if you're watching the reruns of this show, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Contact me via Facebook Messenger. And if you have a question on creativity or anything we've talked about tonight, I'll do my best to answer you. Also, to let you know, Aaron Alden, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I just see that. And let's see, did I miss anyone else? I probably did. Howie Odell, brother, glad to see you here. Hope you're still here. Eric Hawkins, of course, glad to see you as always. Pops Van Zant, and everyone that has commented and everyone who just lurked, we appreciate you greatly. Thank you. Huge thank you to Maria Gonzalez, not only for being here, but for inviting me to this affair. This has been swank. And you know what? I've had so much fun. I'm going to come back tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Illinois time. I remember my Illinois. And anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with Jack Gonzalez, Maria's husband, and we're going to talk about creativity and world building. Unless you're doing something that takes place in the current day, right around the corner, you're going to need to build a world to house it, whether it's Middle Earth or the deepest reaches of space beyond the farthest star, or in a far gone era or the distant future. You're going to need to build a society, and hopefully we can give you some answers to that. Please bring your questions tomorrow. Again, that's 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Central, here on the channel you're watching this on now, both my profile page, but most importantly, the MALPD FanFest page. Please enjoy the rest of the evening here. And Cindy Kep says, thanks for hosting this adventure. Cindy, thank you so much for your support, darling. You are the total best. And Christian Basil wants more Morris Monster 24/7. Well, move in, brother. We got a spare room. We can handle this. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Just want to let you know, my name is Brian K. Morris. I am an author of books such as Sandestein and The Haunting Tales of Bachelor's Grove and the original Skyman, Battles the Master of Steam, a little steam pulp adventure. We also do comic books, and we are gearing up to do more in the immediate future. But we love comics, we love writing, we love prose, and if we can help you love it too, we're glad to do it. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Again, to let everyone know, I host 3 morning talk shows called Nevermind the Furthermore, coincidentally. And let's see, let me get that card. There we go. That's the one. Anyway, Nevermind the Furthermore is an interactive talk show where we rely on your comments and questions to keep it going. And we do appreciate everyone that shows up. Also on Facebook, we have Rising Tide publications page where we put out content 3 or 4 times a day. Illumination, education, inspiration. That's what we're all about here at Rising Tide. And also on Tuesday nights, I do a special show called Clever Title Pending. That's the name of it. Don't send me any suggestions, please. I've seen most of them. But anyway, it's an interview show where we talk to creatives about creativity and the business behind it. And this coming Tuesday, we've got a very special guest, Jen Thompson, who is a writer, editor, publisher, and show promoter. She hosts the Indie Author Book Expo in Iowa and various other states, and we hope that you will join us in talking to her. Also, like I said, please sign up. There is the address on the crawl below, bit.ly/RSNGTD. That's Rising Tide without the vowels, 01. And you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter. The next issue will be out September 1st, and we've got all kinds of cool stuff on there. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a like, because we want to conquer the media, and you're an essential part of that. Let's see, in closing, I guess I've run through everything. Thank you all again. Thank you again, MAPLD FanFest, for your attention. We'll be back tomorrow, Saturday, at 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Central, with Jack Gonzalez, and we're going to talk about creativity and world building. So until we meet again, my friends, remember, stay smart, stay safe, wash your hands, and never apologize for being awesome. Thank you all for being here. Have a very special weekend and enjoy the rest of the MALPD FanFest. And I've got to find my closer video here. It's around here somewhere. This is such a slick show, don't you agree? Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Nevermind the Furthermore, a Rising Tide Publications and Brian K. Morris production. Member of the Comic Book Advocating Network and sponsored by GeekInsider.com. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising@geekinsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends, because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.